Hi, everyone, and welcome. Firstly, I just wanted to start by thanking you all for joining us today. My name is Sean O'Keefe, and I am the Senior Marketing Manager at Marqeta. And today I have the pleasure of being joined by Peter Baron, who is the CEO at TBI Bank. And we're going to sort of understand and explore this concept of Lending 3.0. How is Lending 3.0 transforming the lending industry to ultimately deliver a better world for both lenders and borrowers? This is a really exciting topic. Before I start asking Peter some questions in regards to how Lending 3.0 is changing the game, I did just want to make you all aware that you do have the opportunity to post questions. And if time permits, I will try to pose those questions to Peter. So with that said, it's a privilege to join you today, Peter.
Hi, Sean. Hi. Hello, everyone. Pleasure being here.
So I wanted to kick things off by using a quote as a reference point from the Industrial Revolution. And this one, it's really interesting, from Henry Ford, when he said, you can have any color car you want as long as it's black. But now we live in a world where you can have any car that you want. You have the freedom and control to design the car to meet your exact needs. And ultimately, what we live in a world is of hyper-personalization. But when we think about lending, even in the most recent times, you would probably describe it as a have any color car you want as long as it's black type offering. So from your perspective, it'd be good to explore, what is Lending 3.0 and how is it allowing us to move from this one size fits all model to a personalized model at scale?
Sean, I like the example because you're absolutely right. And in the past, in the car industry, it was very binary. And actually, the same thing was in financial services. It was yes, no kind of situation. Now you're right, and with cars you can design everything you want, and you can really personalize it as much as you want. And you had certain leaders who took advantage of that and were ahead of a trend, and they really grew as a consequence of this. I think that same democratization really is happening in financial services, and it has been happening for the last decade, since really the financial services and fintechs have started coming into play and democratizing the market from this really binary approach by taking out niches and focusing on those niches to really deliver a best-in-class service and really to give customers solutions at the tip of their fingers. And I believe that same thing same trend is really following, because you have powers of SaaS, BaaS, etc., which are really allowing for smaller operators to design products and features and solutions around the customer's needs. So this trend of hyper-personalization is going to continue, and banks are going to know about the customers in advance, a lot of information, and based on the information they're going to be able to, the infrastructure is going to allow them to really design a service specifically for this customer. And I'm not talking just about a display of their app. I'm really talking about products which are going to be in time and embedded at the right moment in their journeys. And these products are going to be very targeted towards really the customer, right? It's not going to be binary yes, no. It's going to be exactly for whom, how much, and when, right? And what are the right terms for that customer? This is exactly what is already happening. And I think it's absolutely amazing, as previous speaker, Deputy Governor was talking, that at the end of the day, actually the value is to the consumer.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And one of the points that you touched upon, embedded, it would be good to elaborate on that shortly as well. And when we think about lending, just moving forward from what we just discussed, it has been a productized option as well, whether it's credit cards, loans, mortgages. But I think, as you alluded to, consumers and even businesses for that matter don't think in those terms. They don't think, oh, I need a credit card. They have desires or goals in their life, or a certain lifestyle that they want to lead, and that's just the mechanism that allows them to do that.
Absolutely.
So how does Lending 3.0 allow us to move from a product-based offering to a solution, and really thinking about that embedded piece that you referenced?
Well, this is the whole point. I think that before kind of people saw banking as the necessary evil, right? And we saw that before everybody wanted to be a banker, and after 2008 nobody wanted to be a banker, right? And everybody wanted to be in fintech. But actually, it's not just because of the crisis of 2008. It's really because, again, back to the democratization of the services. And I think that part of that is of course the huge digital revolution that we are going through, and internet and availability of really kind of the barriers being broken down, where before you had to be a huge financial institution in order to be able to afford an extremely heavy infrastructure and the investments necessary. And suddenly you're able to receive those services on a fly, in the cloud, on a subscription model. So you didn't have to carry that enormous capex. So on one side you have this trend. On the other side you have a trend where really customers again don't like banks, frankly. And I love an example that I've learned from our consultants who are helping me years ago to build a branch network, and they were telling me that they were literally measuring when people were walking down the high street, and then they were walking past the shops, and then they were walking past the bank windows, and then they were walking past the bank windows. On average, we were half a meter further away from the bank branch than if it was a normal shop, right? Which was indicating this kind of dislike or fear that was happening. So now that you have an enormous availability of services which are consumed online, people are looking really for solutions rather than banks trying to create a product and push the product as was in the past. Customers are really looking for a solution. They don't really care about the bank in many ways. They're looking, to make a fast payment. They're looking to use a payment instrument when they go shopping. They're looking for a credit line when they are acquiring goods or services. So once you understand that and your technology is capable to be able to be embedded in the customer's journeys, where customer are actually coming to look for something that brings them pleasure. Let's say, I don't know, shopping online, right? And they want to pay for something in installments, which is something that TBI has been really one of the pioneers of executing in our region. But it's a huge global trend that we're seeing with enormous companies, even the biggest, without naming our big pink competitor, who has become the biggest valued startup in Europe with the latest round of 31 billion valuation, who are really riding this wave, where a customer, they care about the goods and the service that they're going to acquire. And if you're able to embed yourself in the process, where actually they're not having that negative experience, they're looking for that positive experience, they're looking for that good, for that acquisition, for that service, and you are inside that journey where it's seamless and without really too much friction, which is very important in any online process. I mean, we all know, everybody who deals with digital, how important every single click, every single window is to the customer, and the drop-off rates that you will experience if you create that process where it is not frictionless creates. So therefore, if you're able to do that, right, if you set your mind towards it, if you have experience in your organization, if you speak enough to the customers in terms of what is it that they're looking for, you can really benefit from positioning yourself as a value add rather than this necessary evil.
Yeah, definitely. I think from my perspective, one of the best examples of that is the burgeoning trend of buy now, pay later. And as you said, I think it was fascinating because it really focused on addressing two key pain points for customers, which was speed and cost. I remember back maybe 5-10 years when if you wanted to purchase something in store, there was lots of paperwork that you had to complete at the point of sale, and there was quite a high interest rate. So it's, for me, Lending 3.0, with the rise of buy now, pay later propositions, actually giving consumers the option to have 0% interest is such a compelling difference to where we've been to where we are now.
Well, the interesting thing, and as we're obviously on a fintech, Sofia FinTech Summit, the interesting thing is that actually some of these products, again, were pioneered on the Eastern European markets, including Bulgaria, where zero interest point of purchase finance, what's known as point of sale finance, were actually already introduced. And we've been running such campaigns with our partners for years. Yes, it was not paperless. Yes, it was not frictionless, and that is something that we had to really focus on a lot. But we really saw that some of those, innovations, let's call them like this, of Western giants today have been around actually for years. Buy now, pay later is a slightly different take on it because it's more really of a payments instrument rather than a loan. But de facto, it is a very similar tool actually to zero interest rates. The frictionless part, which was not there, and all the paper, exactly what you're talking about. But again, now in our case, for example, we are fully digital. Everything is online, and we try to save as many trees as possible, whilst at the same time creating a very, very friendly process to the customer. However, the next step is definitely more in relation to payments side of it, because it really opens up a completely different customer base. And when you talk about again, kind of Klarna type operators or Afterpay or Affirm, they really focus themselves on a slightly different customer base and slightly different verticals in terms of products and services, and that has really added a much richer reach for them. So we are also moving in that direction and adding just on top of our current merchant solutions services that we provide really to the merchants, because at the end of the day, here is value is twofold. Values for the merchant on one side, and that's one of our key roles, is to help merchants sell more. And on the other side, it helps the consumer to really spread his payments over time in a convenient to him way, where he is able to plan his purchases much better.
Yeah, definitely. And as you say, I mean, it's a really compelling point you focus on, talking about bridging the gap between lending and payments. So it's probably not enough anymore just to lend money. That gap exists, and by bridging it, we're able to build new business models and better outcomes for customers.
And you guys are exactly at the core of that, right? I mean, that's where Marqeta really again became a multi-billion dollar company, by exactly positioning themselves to allow multiple players to do that, right? So you guys know it much better than anybody else. And there were services before. I mean, if you look at it, credit card is a way of bridging between lending and payments, and it has been around for like 60 years or something, right? But it was the only way. Right. And now you have installment cards, and now you have buy now, pay later, right? And now you have mobile payments, right? And all that is kind of merging into an array of different takes on solving the same solution. So it's exactly the trend of democratization, where from a binary option, right, credit card, right, or debit but no credit in that case, right, to have an ability of having different takes on it, and offering each to their own, really, to the different audiences, because credit cards were highly unavailable for younger audiences, which is exactly why buy now, pay later went.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think it's interesting, you said you've got the digital revolution now, where lots of people say we now live in an API economy. Innovation cycles are only getting shorter, they're getting faster. The winning traits in the API economy are really speed, efficiency, and agility. And what I'm seeing is this is fueled by probably two mega trends, where you've got the platformification, so the rise of platforms, and you said integrating into different platforms to offer services at the point of need. And then you've got as a service models. What's your sort of thoughts on that in terms of how that's allowing us to advance lending and move to lending 3.0?
Well, I think that's huge, to be honest. I mean, the platformification, which I find a little bit difficult to pronounce, I think it's an enormous trend, and we see that. And why? Simply because it allows a much wider reach. Again, if you before kind of narrowed into one particular market, right, or one particular niche. When you enter and capabilities, again, your infrastructure capabilities, in order to be able to operate through different platforms, you are accessing completely different really pools of customers, which tend to be usually, obviously much more digital, but your reach becomes much wider because you need to integrate once with Shopify, and you're able to operate across multiple markets, right? And you're able to touch multiple segments. And this is exactly what's been happening with, digital revolution in general, where it's not market focused as such, right? But the technology is one, right? It's one instance, right, which allows you to operate across multiple markets and multiple niches. And there you're able to really integrate and plug in much faster with your partners. And you're right, the cycles are turning much faster than they used to be before. And you have to make sure that your organization is prepared for that, and whoever is prepared reaps the benefits of this huge tidal wave, right? Which was supported, of course, by COVID. I mean, that the trend was already there, right? We all knew what was going to happen. We just, we saw it happening, in 3, 4, 5, 10 years time, and suddenly, COVID just pushed the adoption extremely fast, right, out of nowhere. So if you were ready for it, you really benefited from that. And we saw again a huge shift from in-store shopping to online and mobile. And this will only continue as people get used to it, right? They once COVID ends, they will go back to certain norms of the past, but majority won't, right? Because they already tried and they know how convenient it is.
Yeah, no, definitely, Peter. Completely agree with that. So I want to spend the last few minutes just focusing. So you obviously referenced the pandemic. I think every crisis presents opportunity. If you think back to the financial crisis of 2008, that was probably really the birth of fintech. And in lending terms, you had the proliferation of alternative lenders. But every crisis, you said, it gives us a chance to identify issues with existing business models. So what have you learned from the current global pandemic, and how is it informing your roadmap and vision for Lending 3.0 at TBI Bank?
Well, look, I mean, frankly, right, considering that we were already on that path, right, we did not really have to change anything, right? We continued on our path, where we had to, of course, to realign certain resources in order to prioritize certain projects. But overall, we really did not have to change our vision at all. Frankly, we just had to, again, intensify our efforts, understanding that the runway is getting shorter. But in terms of our strategy, in terms of our vision, we really did not have to tweak anything because we were already serving our partners and our customers both digitally and physically, and hence our digital model, which was again part of our strategy way prior to COVID. And we just saw the rebalance from in-store business to more online business and more self-service businesses, and that's going to simply continue. But in terms of our strategy, I guess we were much better prepared than majority of players, and therefore we reaped substantial benefits out of it in terms of new customers.
Cool. And I remember when you joined us on an event with FinTech Talents, and we discussed Lending 4.0. We probably haven't got time to delve into Lending 4.0 today, but what I really wanted to understand from your perspective to share with the audience is, what do we need to focus on and prioritize right now to ensure that we can deliver the promises of Lending 3.0 as an industry?
Well, look, I think that you need to continue prioritizing really the team. I mean, I'm a strong believer in people. I'm a strong believer in the fact that if you create the right environment for organization and for people to really grow inside that organization and deliver, this is where the value gets unlocked. Because again, all of us in on this forum or in a banking industry or in the fintech industry, we all understand where things are going, right? Then the question comes of execution, right? And in order to facilitate that execution inside the organization, this is where the real kind of the secret sauce is, right? As they say, right? You need to create that mindset. You need to create that environment. You need to allow people really to open up and give them the tools in order to be able to deliver. Because they all know what they want to do, right? We all know, right? We all know it, right? It's a matter of actually getting it done. So our focus is really to create that environment where right people can really deliver great things for our customers.
Perfect. So yeah, look, from my perspective, I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I thought it might be nice to finish by, I'll give my sort of three words that sum up Lending 3.0. So for me, it's APIs, embedded finance, and personalization. What are sort of three words you would use to describe Lending 3.0 in a nutshell?
Mobile, power to the customer. This is from my point of view the number one thing that is actually really taking place in data, right? I mean, you need to have all of these three things, right, in place, because majority of interactions will be taking place over mobile, undoubtedly. So you have to be prepared for this. You have to understand, and your mindset has to change. But from now on, the power is no longer with big banks who are, very proud of themselves. And you have to understand that we are living in a consumer world, in a world where people have very little time really spent for attention. And you need to make sure that you're there for them and they understand that the power is in their hands to make decisions. And you need to make sure that your data is in place in order to be able to really provide that personalization and those services which are necessary.
Perfect. Yeah, as I said, just to recap, I've really enjoyed the discussion with you, Peter. I think you've raised some fascinating points, and I look forward to seeing your innovations, further innovations at TBI Bank.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining, everyone.
Thanks, Sean. Thank you, everyone. Bye.